So essentially the vertical and the horizontal version of the bifold wallet are similar in principle, just slightly different in their assembly. So I'm going to combine the two rather than make two entire separate short films on this topic. So essentially we've got this is the horizontal, and this is the vertical. Now the pocket design is pretty much the same on both of them. Now what we do is, to begin with, we just get rid of the outers of both of those wallets. So that's the outer panel of the vertical. Now what we're left with is, for the horizontal, we're left with this main section, two inner pockets and the outer pockets. Now for the vertical, we have a similar setup. We've got our inner pockets followed by our outer pockets. So to begin with, now I've pre-glued these inner pockets already. However, I'll show you how they line up. So basically we want to get our section of the horizontal wallet. We want to place our inner pocket in there, and then we basically want this section of the inner pocket, and we want to line this up so that we have the inner pocket nicely aligned with the outer pocket. Now once we've done that, we would hold that there, maybe grab one of your stitching needles and just run a score along there as a marking score, like such. And then, now as I said before, I've already glued this, but we would take that off and we would place our glue line there and pop this back on, put some weight on there and let that to dry. So it's exactly the same principle on the other side. And the vertical is essentially the same principle. We grab our outer, we put our inner pocket, we place it in there, we line everything up nicely so it's like that, and we can see our inner and our outer pocket. Pop that off, grab our stitching needle, run a scoring mark along here, take that off. As I said, it's already glued. Run a piece of a line of glue, put everything, line it back up to the marks you've scored, and let that dry. So once that's done, so that's the other side of the vertical, we want to grab both of our horizontal and verticals, and we want to grab our 3mm marking tool. So we use this tool to mark our stitch line. So on the vertical, we simply run it along there, we mark it, we mark it. If you're doing the horizontal, same exact principle. Okay, so we've marked where our stitch line's going to go, and then we want to pull out our four prong punch tool. Now we run, I like to run the tool that way so I can line it up nicely. So we want to begin about 4mm from the edge. And so our first holes, run that there. Now we could use our our 2-prong to get that one last stitch in there. So we'll just run that. Now we've got our nice stitch line there for our inner pocket. So we just repeat that. For our horizontal, exactly the same principle. Our stitching our needle, thread the needle, run about that, and then pierce that through the middle of the thread, drag it back over, and then creates a nice little knot. We do the same on the other side. Needle about a needle's length, and then through the middle. Okay, so we have our thread. Now come through, get it about there, get it in the middle, and then we just simply start. So we can just start with the top of our saddle stitch. We go down. We get our other one, bring that one up from the bottom. Try not to pierce the thread that's already in there on the way up. Keep that taut. And then we simply down on that one. Okay, now once we get to our final stitch, we want to back stitch. In this case, I'll back stitch 2 stitches. So we simply we do our saddle stitch, what we've just been doing, but we simply go in reverse, just like in a sewing machine. So we run our stitch. Okay. So I'll just go back 1.5 on this one. And we'll go to our back. We'll snip that maybe 2 or 3 mil. Grab the lighter and then smear them to the side. And then we have one complete pocket. So now we just, same principle for the horizontal, stitch, stitch. Okay, so once we've stitched our inner pockets on our vertical and our horizontal versions, what I like to do is we need these, okay, glued in so that we can do our next round of stitching. Now on the horizontal version, we glue our pockets in as such, and then our next stitching job is to run a stitch line down here on both sides. So that's for our horizontal. Now for our vertical, we want to also glue our outer pockets. So we want to glue our outer pockets right around here and right up this side. Same here. And then for our vertical version, we're running our stitch line down here, and then we're running our stitch line down here. We can just rough that up a little bit so that we get better contact with our glue. So I'm just going to rough that up a bit with the back side of a X-Acto knife. Like so. Just hold that in there. Exactly the same principle. So those are the right pockets on the vertical, the horizontal. So okay, so once we've let our project dry, we just take off our bulldog clips. So for our horizontal wallet, we want a stitch line down here. So being careful with the tool not to put a mark on the visible section of the wallet. So this section is visible, but we want a stitch line down here. So I'll just do it very lightly. It's just a guide. Okay. With each of these wallet designs, we have a stress point here. So you'll be putting cards and things like that in there, and you'll be getting a stress point. So what we want to do is we want to have one stitch coming over the top of the pocket. So if I can illustrate that, so we want our first hole to start right here. Okay, so we get a stitch that comes across here and secures that pocket. Now the exact same thing goes for the vertical. We want our first hole to begin just above that inside pocket. So the stitch goes here and then follows our stitch line. So grab this and we shall neatly line up and get our first stitch in place. Okay, so if you see, look carefully, I've got my first hole starting right there, and then we simply continue on. Then we have it for the horizontal. Same goes for the vertical. Start one stitch up. Now since this is a stress point in the stitching, what we'll do is we'll back stitch one on this as well. So do our first stitch. So I just want to back stitch one because it's a stress point. Okay, once both of our horizontal and vertical, or either or, are complete, depending on which version you have, there's one extra step for the vertical version. So if you've got the vertical version, you will want to sand this. Give this a sand. Edge beveler tool is also in the shop if you want to check that out, but you don't need it. And just gives it a bit of a nicer finish. So once we've done that, we can give this a burnish using our burnishing tool. Now, if you don't have a burnishing agent like this, you can just use water. So just run water along the edge and apply heat and friction with the burnishing tool. So I'll just use a bit of this burnishing agent and I'll just apply that on the edge with my finger. Okay. And then I start to apply my friction, heat. Once we've done that, we've got our vertical, horizontal. We grab the outer for our vertical and the outer for our horizontal, and basically this is our wallet complete. Okay, so we essentially want to glue this in place so that we can then stitch it all together. So you know, this glues together like this, and our vertical, each one glues on like so. So we'll start with the vertical and horizontal, and we basically very simply want to okay, so we have our last stitch line to complete, and we'll do this for the vertical. Horizontal, we basically want a complete stitch line all the way around the wallet, and then on our horizontal we want our stitch line here on each side, and we will do it from the outside, from the outside of the wallet. So here, here for the horizontal, and yeah, all the way around for the vertical. So we'll begin with getting our edge marking tool. We want to try our best to end right here for the sake of neatness. So what I like to do is just mark the wallet lightly, a small mark there, and a small mark there, so I know where to stop. And I'll begin the stitch about here in the wallet. Again, this is a stress point, so we'll want to backstitch one. We'll begin here, backstitch one, then sew all the way around here. So we'll begin by creating our 3mm line. Okay, so our horizontal is complete. Now, to finish everything off entirely, we would grab our sandpaper and we would sand all of our edges right back, and we would burnish either with the burnishing agent if you have it, and the burnishing tool, or with water and the burnishing tool, and then you will have a completed horizontal wallet. Now the vertical wallet, exactly the same principle. All I can suggest really is this will be the front of the wallet, so maybe start the stitch on the back side of the wallet, so maybe start it there. So start your stitching there, right round, and that will be it. Okay, so we are finished with our vertical and our horizontal versions of the slim wallet. So give your sides a nice sand, and if you have a edge beveling tool, run that along the edge, give it a nice bevel. So that's essentially the entire process right there. So once you've given those edges a sand, optionally a bevel, you give everything a good burnish with either water or your burnishing agent, and that is it.